Hey Quilties, it's Karen Marchetti, and it's time for another dual process. This time, Kat Fehr and myself are working on a star and chain quilt. We each have a great idea for you, so grab your printable and draw along. Hey guys, it's Karen. So on my version, okay, I see loops happening on this. They're super easy. They stitch out quickly, but I don't want to ignore the fact that all these piece chains are there. I really want to accentuate those. So I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to just do some continuous curve around these, just around the outside. And from here, I would take a ruler and stitch this frame. So then I can stitch some loops in here. Just real simple loops like that. Cut across here and do continuous curve back. And hopefully it would look a lot neater than what I'm drawing. You could ditch this all at the end, but I'm going to use it to travel. I'm going to stitch up here, straight across, till I get to here, and I'm going to repeat those continuous curves. And again, stitch in that frame, and then do the loops. I get to here, stitch over here, and come back with a continuous curve there. All of the areas are going to kind of, like if you divided this square, right? They're going to have this framework that kind of does that. Okay, so up here, we're going to have to do a partial one, which would come to here and then there. And I know that doesn't make much sense, but as I draw it, it'll make a little more sense. So we stop there. Let me get rid of this so I don't confuse you anymore. I'm going to keep these tick marks so that I know where I'm aiming for. They'd also be here and here. So I ended here. I'm going to stitch over about to where I think that would come in, because we're only doing a partial one. Again, up to here, up to there, and over to here. And then I'm going to loop till I get to this point, and I'm going to do continuous curve around that pieced block. Just like that. And then finish filling this with loops. Oop, getting a little crazy with my drawing. And again, stitching is always much better than drawing. It's never super pretty when you're doodling on a digital whiteboard. Okay. And then I would tie off. If I had to use a different color for the piece block, I would change now, or else I would just go through and stitch the piece block. Just like that. And then come down here. And I'm doing super simple in here because that's all it really needs. I just want that background pushed back and just minimal stitching in these piece blocks. All right, so we did that. We're going to come over here. And I mean, you can finish stitching all of this. And then do continuous curve on this side. And I'm assuming that we can fit this into one pass. If not, you would stitch as much as you could and then just tie off. Okay, I want to get up to here. Again, we're doing that frame, filling it with loops, stitching down to here. Again, our continuous curve. Which would be much, much neater if we were stitching, but you get the idea. Cut through here, do that frame, do our loops. Okay, from here, we're going to have to do that partial again. So if we mark our tick marks, and we'd probably have to roll this to get down there. And mark our tick mark here and our tick mark here. So we can do that partial frame. Back into the full frame. Partial. Do one loop to get us to here. Do our continuous curve and fill in our block. Finish our continuous curve. And finish our loops in that background. And we're going to do this again. Oh, once I'm done. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, then you can finish stitching over here as necessary, and then tie off and come over here and repeat the same. Marking our tick marks and doing our frame. And then again our loops till we get to the block. The minimal stitching in the block. Finish our continuous curve around the block. And that just gives it a little offset so that it's not just the background fill going right up to the pieced block. I kind of like how that looks. It's just a tiny little frame around it. So it's cohesive with all the continuous curve around those piece chains. We finish filling this in. And then I'm going to finish drawing out this half of it, and when I bring you back, we'll work on the border and how we would do that. So I'll see you back here in just a minute. Okay, so now that the body of the quilt is quilted, we're going to finish out with this border. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume this half done in one and then come back and finish this half. So I'm going to put my needle down just for like a little, I'm going to guess about a 1-inch border. Again, we never know the size of these. We're just assuming. So I'm going to either put my channel locks on or use a ruler. I'm going to stitch a little inner border. Just like that, but a whole lot straighter. Okay, and I'm going to go as far as I can. I'm not going to cut thread. From here, I'm going to go right into my loops. I'm going to stitch the border with the loops. Just do this all the way around. Again, you could use whatever you want. I just wanted to put loops in here. I think the circular motion right here of that continuous curve and the loops, they just go really nice together. And if you vary the size of your loops, you get a lot more visual interest. So do that. Loop all around. until we get back to the point we started. Just looping, kind of just like a butterfly would fly, just all around in little circles. And when we get to here, we're going to leave our needle down. We're going to advance the quilt. And again, channel locks or rulers, whichever you're more comfortable with. Stitch that 1-inch border. Inner border, I should say. Much straighter than, wow, that was really bad. Much straighter than that. Leave the needle down and go right into your loops and come back. And nobody will really even notice that you went from your straight line right into your loops. It'll look like you just kind of touched that line with your loops. If you want to make it look a little less, make sure to touch the line a couple other times. Then it'll even be even more, not more, it'll be even less noticeable because people won't be able to tell which one is where you actually started. Fill that with the loops until you're back to where you started. And it goes pretty fast. This is a quick version of this quilt. And that's part of what I love. Like, you can make these quilts super simple or super custom, depending on how much effort you want to put into it. But I really like this version. Of course, it looks a little better in the good drawing and would look even better when stitched because you'd probably do a matching thread. So I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.
Hey everyone, welcome to Dual Process. I'm Fehr. Today we're working on the Star and Chain quilt top. We'll go through how to place the patterns into your mock-up, and then of course when you get to your stitcher, you will stitch them out as they appear in your quiltable space. So let's get started. When it comes to custom quilting, I personally like to start at the top and work my way down. I usually do the borders first, whatever fits in my quiltable space. Then I do the blocks and the first row and the sashing in the first row. Then I would roll the quilt everything that fits in my quiltable space, including chunking out the borders. And then do the same thing for the bottom. I would quilt the blocks, the sashings, and of course, continue chunking the border and doing the bottom of the border and the corners here as well. Let's use the border corner feature to place the pattern in the borders of the quilt. Remember, you'll choose the corner pattern first, and in this case we are using Crisscross L Corner. This pattern is by Anne Bright, and for the repeat portion we are using Crisscross Border, also by Anne Bright. So first you choose the corner pattern, then you hold down the control button on your keyboard and click the repeat. Click the border corner icon in your tool strip and follow the prompts. And of course, you'll quilt it out as it fits in your quiltable space. Now, let's move on to the blocks here in the middle. Draw a boundary around the first block. And select the pattern. In this case, we've chosen AM Charlotte Block 1. This is by Apricot Moon Designs. And click on Pattern Boundary. That will automatically center the pattern in the boundary. Use the orange handles to adjust the size of the block proportionately. There we go. And then rubber stamp it to all the other spots that you like it to be. And of course, when you're actually at your machine head, always draw boundaries and double, triple check that everything's going to fit before you stitch it out because of shrinkage and everything. Here, we're just doing a mock-up, so we can just rubber stamp. Now we have the blocks placed. Now let's work on the center block of the first row, which is the same block right here, here, and of course, the bottom row as well. So for this particular block, let's combine a bunch of different designs to make a unique pattern just for this quilt. So once again, we'll start by drawing the boundary. Choose the pattern, and we are using Swoon 8W block. This is a pattern by Anne Bright. Click on Pattern Boundary, so it perfectly centers the pattern in the boundary. What I love, love, love about this is look how these curves accentuate the piecing. Just really draws your eye in there. There's obviously a bunch of white space here to fill in yet. So let's have some fun with circular array. This pattern here is called Swoon Double, and of course it's also by Anne Bright. Lining this up with the grid, we're going to remove the top half of this pattern. I'm going to put our nodes view on, and we're going to right click and divide, right click and divide, and then we're going to delete this section here. Putting our nodes back on, let's reconnect these two. Put our endpoint snaps on real quick and snap them together. Perfect. Now, let's order join. Combine them into one pattern. Now that you've order joined and combined this, let's just make one more small adjustment. From playing around with this pattern earlier, I know that we do need to bring the end point, the start and the end points up higher. Otherwise, they overlap the pattern. So let's go ahead and that's the same horizontal plane. Perfect. So now this is going to work a little bit better. Let's, circular array, awesome sauce, order join, combine, and then let's go ahead and copy it from this quilt group back to quilt group 2, which is where our image is. Shrink it to fit. Whee! I love these orange handles. Whee! A little bit more. There we go. And let's place it and see what we've got. Now, of course, we still have some white space here. So I had another fun idea. Let's take this pattern right here. This is called SR Side Sky Wonderfill. And this is a pattern by Nancy Hackey from Wasatch Quilting. And let's put it in the corners, but connect it so it will stitch out as one pattern. So I'm just going to drag this onto the CAD screen. Use the orange handles. And I want to be able to work on this pattern, but without accidentally moving this one. So I'm going to convert these to a boundary temporarily because boundaries cannot be moved and boundaries cannot be stitched. So it's the perfect way to just leave those patterns sitting there. I don't have to worry about accidentally altering them. Let's get this one into the corner. And, whoops, probably purple handles will be better for this. There we go. All right. So, we have this in the corner. And yeah, you could do a fill or trim or play with nodes because we know how much I love nodes. All you have to do is drag the pink endpoint nodes so that they're outside of our boundary, which is technically the other pattern, because we will convert it back to a black stitchable pattern in just a moment. All right. Now, how are we going to connect them, you may ask? We're going to look at these nodes right here. Because what we can do is this. Pull this guy down to there. And then we'll come over here and do the same thing. So let's find where this, sometimes you have to zoom in here, yes, to find all those nodes. And maybe scooch these guys over a little, because I'm going to be picky, because I can be. Alright. And then this one, we'll come to there, and we'll pull that down to there. Perfect. So now, maybe even pull that down a little more. Excellent. I like that much better. Now, let's go ahead and rubber stamp this into the other corners. So there's one. Oops, I made it much longer than it needed to be, but that's all right. It's a super easy fix. 2 and 3. We'll just come back to this, turn on the nodes, maybe bring it to there-ish. Same thing here, and snap them together with our endpoint snaps. So endpoint snaps are on, snap, perfect. Now we'll do the same thing for the other sides. And now, once again, let's order join and combine. So now that is one whole pattern. So now let's take the rest of the block and go ahead and convert it back to a stitchable pattern. And at this point, we can rubber stamp it. Select the whole thing here. We can rubber stamp it into the other blocks where it's going to stitch out. And of course, always double, triple check with your crosshairs that it's going to fit perfectly before you actually stitch it. Let's start with the sashing, and we're going to use this pattern here, cute little piano key, and this is QWC 2024 piano key top bottom, and this was actually a pattern that was given to the Statler participants of the Quilting with Confidence tour in 2024. So we're going to use repeat patterns to place it. Just need enough to fill in here, and this might be in the way. So once again, let's convert the elements that we don't accidentally want to move to a boundary. Then they won't be in our way. Select our piano key, select repeat patterns, follow the prompts on the screen. We're going to place it there and use repeats in rows and just add a whole bunch. Click OK to close the setup box and shrink it down to fit here. Let's go ahead and rubber stamp this into the other sashing spots where we would like it to go. All we have left are the little cornerstones. This is going to be nice and easy and fun. We're going to use draw boundary, and once again, click out a boundary around the little cornerstones. There we go. Choose our pattern, which is called Chain, and this is a free pattern that came with your Statler. So we have our boundary selected, our pattern selected, click on Pattern Boundary. For some reason, it places this one up here in the corner. I'm not 100% sure why. So we're just going to move it to where we need it to be. And then use the handles to adjust the size accordingly. And then once again, just rubber stamp it into all the little corner squares. And look at that. I absolutely love this. Using this chain pattern in all of the little squares really connects the designs, and your eye flows straight through all the little teeny tiny squares and the whole quilt. So when you really step back and look at it, it just creates so much movement. Thanks for watching this episode of Dual Process. We hope that it has inspired you. Till next time, thanks for watching.